Bad posture, from evolution to devolution. And can chiropractic actually offer a solution for these problems? This will be the topic of today. And this is what I do all day long. I do see people, we examine people, patients, we examine children, we examine adults, and we do see that there is one issue that seems to be a little bit wrong with absolutely everyone. They come with different problems, different symptoms, but the one thing we do look for are their posture. And why is that? Well, posture seems to be a great determinator of people's health. And if we're walking on the streets of Budapest and look at someone with a good posture, it should at least, in our own minds, give us a feeling of, wow, that's how I also want to be or should be. And if we see someone that's really hunched over, that tends to give us an idea of, maybe there's something going on with his health that is not where we want to be. So this is why I choose this topic of posture, because it seems to affect everyone. And does anyone in here know at what speed human posture is declining at? Sometimes I hear someone throwing in 50 kilometers. 150. So it's not an auction, it doesn't go up. It could go up to speed of light. But realistically, the human posture is declining at the speed of technology. There is an inverse diagram that shows that the way technology is expanding or growing, that's how human posture and the human framework is unfortunately declining. And the reason for that being that we spend a lot more time using the technological devices, way more than we did before. We just had to get up and go. Now we have remote controls. Now we have a lot of other things, and we're getting more and more. And we have smartphones, and these devices do a lot of the things that we actually had to get up and do before. So this is why posture seems to be one of those topics that we can always relate to the health, and we can look at who it affects. Let me just run a real quick little survey here. Does anyone in here have a cell phone? Everyone has a cell phone, so you're affected. Does anyone in here work or used to work on computers? So we're back to, so far we're 100%. Any technological devices, or you work on video games, for example. Not really necessarily our age group, but some of us may have used them, and some of us may actually enjoy them still, or have children or grandchildren that enjoy playing on these video games. So technical devices are there for everyone. They're not just an adult thing that we use for work. Everybody seems to, and kids are almost genetically born to be able to use these devices without actually having to learn how to use them. So it seems to affect absolutely everyone. It affects people that read magazines or read books. How many have Kindle? Oh, you have 10,000 books on one. So in the old days, when you finished the book, you put it down. Now you don't have to put it down, you just go on to the next one. So there's no stopping when we use these devices unless the battery runs out. But that's really why we have chargers, and we have an extra charger in our pockets, because we don't want it to run out. So it seems to be affecting absolutely everyone. And some interesting data coming to how many people it actually affects. It seems like 70% of the 11, 12-year-olds have cell phones nowadays. This is US statistics, but I'm pretty sure that if we do them anywhere in Europe or in Hungary, we would come up with similar statistics. So if 70% of these children have cell phones, and that actually goes up to 90% by age 14. So it's not something we can neglect, and we need to realize that the posture is an important part of our health. We look at statistics saying that 41.6% of school-aged children have issues with their backs. They have pain in their backs. Something that I tend to remember not really hearing from my classmates, that we have children having back problems or back aches. Sure, if you did sports and you fell over or got knocked over, but not really just from prolonged sitting. So 41.8, it's almost half of the children have some sort of problems that they can relate to the sitting. So we do live in a digital era. Over 1.8 billion people have smartphones. Makes you almost wish you got into the smartphone business. but it's not good for the people to have these, and it's not the problem with the devices in itself. We haven't quite learned how to use them or how to adopt better ways of using them. Another alarming statistic is that 25% of 2 to 5-year-old children have cell phones. And that's where I remember seeing when my little daughter was 1.5 years old, and she used an iPad, because that's another tool that seems to be lying around at home, a tablet or an iPad. And even kids, they're almost born, again, genetically to know how to, they look at it once and they can just change the pages. They know the little triangle starts it, and if there's 2 lines on there, just press, because that's pause. So they learn that really fast. And if these children are grown up with devices like this, they may develop spinal problems. And I would probably say that the may part of it is almost a guarantee that they will have issues with their spines. Can or should we prevent them from using the technical devices? I think before lunch here, this almost came up as a topic. I didn't want to give away half my speech by answering it, but absolutely not. We can't do it. We can't take the devices away from them and expect them to grow up in a world that have devices and technical things around them all the time. They should and are expected, even in school, to know how these are used. An interesting thing was my daughter just did her expose, her presentation for school, and she was doing a PowerPoint, just very similar to how I was sitting and putting this PowerPoint together. And thank you, Henry, for giving some good advice on how to put these together, because I quite enjoyed putting in animations and having slides flying from right and left and all these things, but they're not really necessary. And she was doing the same thing, and I said, well, have you taken a computer class? Are they actually already offering that? And they said, no, just never seen it. And I'm like, well, how do you know how to use it? Well, it's just there. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's just there, but it takes me forever to find these things. And she knew exactly how to do the animations. She changed the background colors. I was like, wow. And no one's ever showed her how to put up or set up a PowerPoint presentation. It was just, I would say genetically encoded, but I don't buy that. They just somehow learn way faster. So no, we can't take these devices away from them, but we can teach them how to use them more properly. I will give some comments on how that could be done, or some recommendations or how that should be done. Because most people, when they use these devices, they tend to adopt something we call flexor dominant posture. And if you're not a medical doctor, even if you are, most likely this, and because you're not dealing with it on an everyday basis, flexor dominant posture may not occur to you. But what it actually means is that we're standing with a flexed position. Let me just turn around a little bit just to show you. These are the postures we're looking at here. The head goes forward. The shoulders round forward. Where our chest sort of flexes forward. We're pushing or squeezing our lungs together. In certain studies, they've seen that you can compress the lungs up to about 30% by having a forward head posture in a flexor dominant position. And what do children do when they sit? They do the same positions, as you can see on the pictures behind me. They sit down and they have fun. For how long? They can go on for hours. There's no stopping, because unless the battery runs out on the device, there's always something exciting them. And that is a neurological issue. And one of the problems why these devices are never put down, because they're just exciting. There's always something new. There's always they're playing against each other. And it really comes down to someone telling them okay, it's time to stop. Children should be out playing. Adults should be at least moving around. So these are things we definitely need to keep in mind, because even terminology is adapting to what happens. We have a flexor dominant posture. We've got several issues in our physiology that is not good for them. And then comes up a name called tech neck, technological neck, or text neck. But that pretty much means that we're keeping our heads in a flexed position, and we're developing issues in our cervical spine, the neck, our muscles. Has anyone ever felt their trapezius muscle, the big muscle around their neck, being tight? Those are the issues that these problems come with. And if you see the picture behind me, but I'll give you the idea. These are in pounds, but I will give you the kilograms, that when the head falls forward, anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees, you're already putting, your normal head weighs about 5 kilograms. When that goes forward, you'll have tension on your neck that corresponds to about 12 kilograms. And it keeps going up. We're looking at spines with 30 degrees, and we're already up to 18 kilograms of extra weight. It feels like when you're carrying it, and I do have, since we're at the Academy of Science, I brought my little, disappear here, my little tool. We do have technical stuff to show people that this is actually what we carry on our heads. This is a 10-pound bowling ball. It's 4.8 kilograms. So if we're keeping this straight over our spines, that's the weight you're carrying. If you keep folding it or putting it forward, and I invite everyone, I'm going to leave it here, to pick it up, don't fall over with it, but lean it forward, just to see the sheer weight. As it says in the slide here, 60 degrees of forward head carriage, which is pretty much corresponds to you looking down on your cell phone, reading a text or responding, sending an SMS, and you're carrying an extra almost 30 kilograms of weight on your neck and spine. So I'll leave it here. Don't drop it on your foot. So tech neck. And then we're going into a term coined by Manfred Spitzer, a neuroscientist, called digital dementia. So this all relates to spine, but digital dementia, coined by this scientist, was actually something that he realized or came up with, where he saw that that short-term memory pathways will actually deteriorate by the use of technology. It deteriorates from underuse. We're not using our body to move, and we were meant to move. So if we deteriorate from underuse, because we overuse technology. And I know it's really hard to put the technology down, but maybe we can give some suggestions, and this is what we try to do in our office, to actually give more of the home exercise type and just sort of bring up the idea of what we need to do. Most people growing up in the past 100 years have only learned one thing for prevention. Do you guys know what that is? Brushing your teeth. That's really the only prevention that we learned ourselves. That's really the only prevention that we're really, really strict with children, is to every morning, every evening, go brush your teeth. And that's really the prevention that we're teaching our children. I do think the spine is just as important as probably the dentists think that the teeth are. But if we walk around Budapest, there are plenty of dental offices, and no one's doing bad. So I'm thinking either just brushing the teeth isn't really the solution for the dental issues. And I'm not going to go over into a dental speech here, but the same things that affects or similar things that affect dental issues do affect the spine from postural issues. So if we can just realize this and we can teach people the importance of posture, we will win the fight against deterioration of the spine. And the spine is important because of what Magdalena also said here, the nervous system. It's not just, chiropractors work with the neuromusculoskeletal system. That means the brain and the nervous tissue, the muscles, and also the bones. These are the things that anytime we touch a body, we need to take into account that we're working on his neuromusculoskeletal system. We're changing inputs to the brain. The better input goes into the brain, the better the output is going to be. So this is why we see a lot of children. We see more adults, but almost 20-25% of my practice are children under the age of 12. And most people are surprised by that because they think, well, those kids can't have back issues. And they don't have back issues. They have neurogenic issues. They have problems with the nervous system. It doesn't seem to be connecting properly. And why doesn't it connect properly? Because of something that goes on in the brain. When children sit in front of computers or sit in front of tablets or iPads, their stimulation goes through their eyes. Wrong button. Goes in through the eyes and goes to an area of the brain called the occipital lobe. That's the one in the back there. Human movement and cognition and human decision making is in our frontal lobe. So this is a different part of the brain. And if we sit in front of computers and just look down, and we're quite excited because a lot of things we can do on the tablets and so on, that excites us. It stimulates the children to not wanting to stop doing it. Have you ever tried to take a tablet away from a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old? It kind of goes a little bit crazy there. But if you persist, you can win. So it stimulates a different part of the brain. And sitting and getting stimulated and not moving actually leaves the frontal lobe with less or no stimulation whatsoever. And this is the problem. This is when they come to a chiropractor and get adjusted. We wake up the areas of the brain, very similar to what they do with the IMPP, for example. They do movements. Everything is about movement. I would say we give the fake movements because we do it passively. I give the movement to the child by short, quick little thrust through some of the bones along their spine, and some are more important for these issues. Some are less. We use structural adjusting with adults, where we try to get them back into be able to stand in a better position, because you don't have muscle in the back that pulls the bones straight back. You have muscle attaching to the side, one side or right side or left side, but you don't have muscle attaching in the back where you can just sort of run away and it will yank your spinal bones back. So we need to sometimes take them and adjust them sort of backwards. We need to get you back so you can start resisting, because gravity works equally on absolutely everyone. We can't turn it off. It sometimes would be nice to turn the gravity off and people can just relax and really relax, but you can't. And as long as you can't, you need to do things that works with the anti-gravity, and getting the spine adjusted and treated by a chiropractor really helps relieve that tension that has been built up in the spine. So signs of digital dementia could be such things as memory loss. We don't tend to remember things. We can't, or we want to be detached, or even depression can be a sign of an early, and this isn't really, I'm not talking about the disease called dementia. These are signs that neuroscientists see in the brains that looks very similar to, but is caused by not moving properly. So lack of motivation and empathy and depression can all be signs that we should be looking for. So it's time for us to actually start looking up from our cell phones. A very simple thing is really just sitting straight and pulling your chin back. It's as simple as that. It's really the hard part about this is to remember to do it. It's almost too simple, and it's like brushing the teeth. It's not a hard process. It takes a few minutes, ideally 3 to 5 minutes, but I don't know if everybody does that. But if you can just sit up, pull the chin back, you've already done something for your cervical spine. So I just want everyone to commit to one thing, and I will teach you in a couple of minutes how you can do these things at home. Because if you can do it to yourself, you can do it to your spouse, you can do it to your children or your grandchildren, but you will be chiropractic assistants by the time I finish this in the next couple of minutes. But this is what we'd like for people to do, are simple at-home posture checks. Because if you can do the at-home posture check, and you can, you know that there's something wrong. So from the front, we're really looking at, let me just talk about I'm going to say it as we're looking at a child. So you may need to get down on your knees when you do it. You have the child take a deep breath, blow it out. Take another deep breath, let it out. Ideally, you want them to close their eyes, but depending on the age of the child, their balance may not be the best, or they may have other vestibular or neural issues, but just make sure they don't fall. And then start looking at their head. Are the ears level? Is one higher than the other? That's already a sign that there must be something not completely right if the head is tilted one side or another. Are the shoulders level? Just put the fingers on the bony parts of the shoulder, and if one is higher than the other, there is a postural issue. You look at the hips, same thing there. You go down the ribs, you get the soft part, and then you get a bony part again. Those are the hip bones, and you look if one is higher than the other. You can look at the face. I forgot to mention the face, where we can make sure it's straight. Chin is one side or the other. It's already a sign that something is a little bit off. And then you have them turn to the side. And from the side, you want to look, their ears should be going down the side of their shoulder without the shoulders being forward sloping. Very often we see this, forward sloping shoulders, and the heads are even further, the tech neck, the forward head carriage. And then we go down to the hips. Are the hips right above the knees, or are they leaning forward? Are they compensating with their hips? Or do they have curvatures in their low backs where they're trying to sort of balance themselves out? If they do have that, there's always and I don't really mean to say that everybody needs to see a chiropractor. They can see a physiotherapist, they can see an orthopedic doc, but very often from the orthopedic side, they will not get any treatment. The physiotherapist will give exercises, which is really good. Chiropractors, they do these every day, or especially if you pick a chiropractor that does this on a daily basis, then you know they can help. And you can look at them from the back and make sure they do breathe in between. So take another breath, and then you look at the ears again. You can look at the shoulder blades. Is everything level? If something's really off, then you know it's time to visit a specialist of some sort. I do have a preference for chiropractic, and I probably say that more often, but that's probably just because that's what I do every day. So if you looked at your children, grandchildren, spouse, and you see something similar to the picture that would be my right, your left, depending on how you're sitting, but the one that is sloping forward, chest compressed, these are serious issues. There's something either in the brain not triggering the postural musculature to work, or they have just adapted this posture and position because they are just so used to it. So ideally, you want them to come out of that, and if you get them out of that and start creating a good posture, because good posture is not that hard to achieve, but it's hard to keep. Because you need to train your muscles. You have excellent muscle for this. You have a type 2 slow twitch muscle along the spine, meaning that they can be loaded. They can handle you standing straight. But they have to be trained to do that. We're more used to just sitting and falling forward or leaning onto things and not supporting ourselves. I don't really like the picture here with the orange picture, because the little girl is showing a sitting straight, but she's using a laptop, and the laptop is actually too low in that picture. Ideally, you want to have screens that are the top third of the screen should be up to your eye height, and that's because and again, get used to scrolling text up to that area, and that's where you want to read them. Otherwise, you'll be looking down. And it seems like small things. They are small things, but we do small things every day, and we do small things all the time that will add up during our days, weeks, months, and years. So these small things are super important for us to actually be able to counteract the stressors that our spines are being put under. So if we can, these are the posture tips that we need to look at. For children, for example, teach them how to hold the cell phones up eye height. I know we don't do it ourselves, but that's just another habit that we've developed. It's easier, more comfortable. But if they're children, we can get them a beanie bag, throw a couple of pillows down on the floor, have them lie down on the stomach, and they will keep their heads up, and they can still play the games. So it's just one thing, is changing their position that they use these devices. As I said, we can't take them away from them. They should be able to use them. They need to learn how to use these things, but we can change the position they use them in. And if we get them used to doing these things, they will develop these habits, and it will just be normal for them. For us, it may be, we use them for so long, it's harder to start changing, but I challenge everyone to do it. It's worth it, and it takes a bit of time, but the body gets used to it. Sitting positions. Same thing there. As I said, computers at the right level, sitting on devices, bowls, or we use more of these air-filled pillows in our office that we recommend to put on the chairs so you can wobble around. Our minds, our brains actually are enlightened by us moving, meaning that if we sit on a wobbly area and cushion, it's like the old dynamo on the bicycles. They got the light to go. It just feeds us. Or we drive 200-300 kilometers, 600 kilometers, get out of the car. What's the first thing we do? We move around. It just seems to freshen up the body. So sitting positions are super important, and using these devices, we can actually have a chance to have less problems using them. And stand with confidence. Standing up straight, keeping yourself straight looks much better. I've even read the text that was saying the anti-aging industry is getting onto postural issues, because it seems like it makes you look younger if you're standing straight than if you're falling over. It may be more of a marketing issue behind that, but there is a message behind the whole thing, that standing straight does have an important effect on the whole body, and we can prevent ourselves from having to go to the rheumatologist and especially the spinal surgeons. They're very kind people, they're very good people, actually very skilled at what they do, but I don't think anyone really wants to have screws into their spines and any type of surgery if it's preventable. So I'm really hoping that the postural issues can change and will change. We may not know exactly where we're heading, just like we haven't known much about the future things, and I've heard interesting things about what will happen. I've listened to lectures about artificial intelligence, and it is very, very interesting. But we need to learn how to use these devices and how much our body can take, because we will adapt. But unfortunately, adapting to a wrong posture is quite painful over the years. So I wish everyone a continued great afternoon, and thank you for listening, and thank you for the invitation.